back to the Spearo podcast. If you're new here for the first time, welcome aboard. This is the Spearo podcast, where we interview spearfishing experts, authorities, and characters from around the world and froth on definitely. Wherever you're listening from, there is actionable information that you can apply to your spearfishing. And even if you're having a dry spell, keep your froth on with the Spearo podcast. Thanks everyone for your support for episode 200. It was a huge effort and some awesome feedback coming through socials and emails. I really appreciate all the voice messages from guests from the past, as well as patrons and just frothing listeners to the show. It was a huge success. I did miss a couple of key voice messages. Ian Puckridge gave me a call and I recorded that. Lost the files. But Pucko says hello, had some awesome stories with his son Aaron. And I lost him, which is, very Shrek-esque. And Cameron Kirkconnell, I gave him a bell as well, but he was just arriving back from a big trip, so I didn't really get much of a catch-up with him, but hopefully we can do that in the next 100 or 200 episodes. But I hope you're enjoying it. A couple of quick shout-outs. Well, actually, just one major one. There is a huge event happening in New South Wales. It's the Kingfish Cup, which is going to be held on the 12th and 13th of November. But there's a massive info night. You really want to flag on your calendars. It's the 3rd of November, which is a Thursday, from 5:30 in Sydney. Guys, definitely mark this one out in your calendars. The Kingfish Cup info night, 3rd of November in Sydney. It'll be a Thursday night from 5:30. Mark that out. Hold that spot in your calendars. Kingfish Cup is a huge event and it's a really well-run comp down there in Sydney. Simon Tripp will be steering the reins, so you're in good hands. Hey, let's get into today's episode. He's a cool dude. I didn't even tell you about him. He's an absolute gentleman, super down-to-earth, very cool. Awesome YouTube channel, Key West Waterman, if you're not subscribed. Captain Aaron West, aka Dibs on Bottom Adventures on Instagram. This dude's cool. I had an absolute blast chatting with him. Here we go. Captain Aaron Young, let's kick 201 in the guts with a big hurrah. Here we go. Adreno.com.au, the home of recipes, blogs, videos, equipment reviews, and an obnoxiously large range of spearfishing equipment for frothers like you. Not only that, but spearfishing trips and courses and trips that I sometimes get to go on. Check them out at adreno.com.au. It's a Spearo's best friend. Check them out, and if you want to buy gear, pump in the code Spearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200. You can use that online, in-store. Use the code Spearo, save some cash, and support the Spearo podcast. Shop with adreno.com.au. Neptonics.com source the very best in spearing gear from around the planet. Jerry says, if we sell it, we believe in it, we trust it, and dive it. Neptonics is the one-stop shop for all your spearfishing essentials. Neptonics is solid gear that works, and you'll know it's true when you pull the trigger on a Neptonics mic, on every snap of a Neptonics power band, and in every whiz of a Neptonics spear gun reel, singing with the power of another big fish. Buy gear you can depend on at neptonics.com. Use the code Noob10 to save 10%. All right, guys. G'day. Welcome back to the Spearo podcast. Today, I'm joined by Key West Waterman, Captain Aaron Young. That's my best American accent. Sorry, Aaron.
That sounded all right.
Man, I've been, as I sort of discussed with you before the podcast, I've been geeking out on your YouTube channel, mostly over the last 48 hours because I was just a late bloomer, so to speak. But you come very highly regarded in terms of, like, the Spearo community voted you in the top 20. And I was quite surprised how highly you ranked, given that, probably on Facebook particularly, maybe the community is probably like 60 or 70% Australian. So you did really well. And I can see why, man. Your channel's cool.
I love to hear that. That's kind of a surprise to me, as I'm pretty low key and we're kind of out here in the middle of nowhere. But I think it's pretty cool to hear that it's reaching that far.
Yeah. For people that aren't familiar with the Florida Keys and sort of that whole interesting bit of geography there, just fill people in on sort of where you're located so that people have an idea of what it's like.
So we are technically the southernmost point of the continental U.S. The Florida Keys kind of extend off the end of Florida. Key West I live about 10 minutes north of that, but Key West, where my boat is out of, where we do all of our diving, is the southernmost tip of the United States. Continental, obviously not Hawaii. Yeah. But yeah, we're literally an island you can access by bridges, but we're technically 120 miles out in the ocean, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, love it. And man, you live in the middle of some mangroves, and it looks just like fantastic country. But I'm imagining the midgies and sandflies would be horrendous at times.
So they're not as bad as you'd think. The local whoever government people handle the mosquitoes pretty well. The no-see-um, what'd you call them? We call them no-see-ums.
Midgies.
The midgies.
Midgies. Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you call them? No-see-ums.
No-see-ums. Yeah, because you can't. They're so small you can't see them. They just bite the crap out of you.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
They're real bad at sunrise and sunset, but other than that, in the wintertime, they don't really bother you. In the summer, they will pick you up and eat you alive.
Yeah, right. Man, some of the water around you is just pristine, and those mangrove systems, they serve as a massive nursery for the broader oceans around you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that comes and starts there, and it is exactly what you said. It's a nursery. It's a safe place for the most part for all those juvenile creatures to kind of just get established. It's safe. They're a great filtration system. I mean, not, to get deeper into it, they're pretty much like a barrier reef, but in vegetation form. They're incredible, and they're an incredible habitat all around.
Yeah, man, and you capture that so well in your YouTube channel as a Key West waterman. If people are curious, I would encourage you to 100% go and follow this man. Just some phenomenal videos. I was watching one this morning. It was 40 minutes long. I watched the whole thing, which is unusual for me, and I just enjoyed every minute of it, man. I had a quick bio. I don't normally read out guest bios, but I found the one written about you on Alchemy, who sponsor you, I believe, to be really good. They said, born and raised in the waters of Central Florida, Aaron has had a lifetime of experience in and on the water. He started spearing at a very young age out of Port Canaveral with his father. His passion for modern-day freediving began in the murky waters of the Indian River. Aaron built a spear gun, a 36-inch true mid-handle to target sheepshead and mangrove snapper. And this is the part of the story I really like, Aaron. In 2013, you were laid off from your full-time job and you decided to sell everything you owned, move to the Florida Keys, and a place where you regularly visited as a kid and pursue your passion. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've done, man. You've set up an enviable lifestyle sort of balance between a bit of commercial spearfishing, running charters, and this massive YouTube channel now that's really, I'd imagine, starting to generate some decent earnings for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could say I had this grand scheme and knew exactly what I was doing, but for the most part, I just said, fuck it, threw caution to the wind and sold everything and drove down with my dog in a little 16-foot Ginu. And the rest is kind of history, and everything along the way kind of happened on accident. And I think most importantly, I really loved what I was doing the entire time. So it never really felt like work, and there was a lot of painful moments, but looking back, the whole thing was just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, wicked. And so, the road to pursuing your passion is always paved with hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, and there's always obstacles and setbacks. Did you go straight into commercial spearfishing or running a charter? How did that sort of all eventuate?
So when I first got down here, I just wanted to be in the water. I said, I'm going to take when I got laid off, they gave me a severance. It was like $8,000 or something. It wasn't a lot of money. But I said, I'm going to take 3 months off. I'm going to spear until I cannot spear anymore. And I did. For 3 months, I was on the water probably every single day. The wind wasn't blowing. And eventually I had to get a job. I ended up doing some snorkel tours for a short time. Didn't like it. I was hopping on and off of commercial boats on other commercial boats and just kind of spearing for them, and kind of made a name that way a little bit. No one really knew who I was. And I remember the first time I went out, I can't remember the guy's name. We were out for about 7 hours and there was 4 of us. We had 16 black groupers in the boat, and I had shot 11 of them out of 4 people. And so that kind of people were like, hey, who's this guy? And it just kind of came naturally. I just absolutely loved being in the water and spearfishing in general. So I was consumed by it. In that 3 months, I kind of figured everything out fairly quickly. And it just kind of unfolded that way. It was
sometimes with Spearos, we don't really have commercial spearfishing here, and so the perception of it is quite different. However, I'd say guys that are able to take a lot of biomass, they do exist here as well. And some of those guys just do it for enjoyment. It's almost like they just enjoy just killing a lot of stuff, but they seem to burn out quite quickly as well, because I don't think it's maybe that, I don't know, it can't be, if you're doing it for a living to feed your family, I can 100% understand it, but like it must take a bit of a toll on you, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm kind of actually going through that right now. When I first started out, I kind of relied on commercial because the charter side of things was really scarce. Like I was really scrounging for trips. I mean, I remember days where I'd go drive my sign down the main strip just trying to get people to come out and fish and dive with me. And as that picked up, I kind of got away from commercial fishing because you spend so much time out there, and it sounds weird, but I create this relationship with each individual spot. Like I recognize fish and eels and all this stuff. And you see all these fish, and you just, after a certain point, you realize how much you are taking, and it loses its lust a little, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So slowly I'm starting to burn out on that. And I like charters more because charters, if I have 4 grouper in the boat, my clients are stoked. Commercially, I need 15 or 20 to make that same amount of money. And it's kind of on its way out for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Cool. Florida seems like an amazing area. I'm guessing the Keys, it's a little bit different to Florida, to mainland Florida, but you guys do seem to have such a rich, quite well-managed fishery off there, and that's what allows people to do what they do and take such a large amount of biomass. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah. I think there's exceptions to it. I think there are some things where they're a little blind as to what's going on because the studies they do are by scientists for 3 days, and they don't talk to the fishermen who spend 200 days a year in the water. But for the most part, they do a pretty good job. And there are a lot of fish here. Like there's a lot of fish to be had, and it's a wonderful thing.
Man, your charter is massive as well. I want to hear about this nickname of yours, Dibs, because you're Dibs on Bottom on Instagram, and it's a bit of a nickname of yours. How did you pick up this handle?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I can't even remember where Dibs came from. People started calling me Dibs years and years ago. And then I made the Instagram name kind of as a joke or a play on words. I was like, well, I dive a lot. And when I moved to the Keys, they started making a joke is when we couldn't catch anything, I'd jump in the water. So I'd jump in the water and shoot whatever it was we couldn't catch. So they're like, oh, you've got Dibs on Bottom. And then when I started the charter, everyone was like, listen, if you don't name the charter Dibs on Bottom, we will not support you. So you have to.
It's awesome to hear. It's a success. I mean, obviously, like a lot of people are giving rave reviews. I had a couple of a quick reads. One guy, Dev Harlow, says, I've been out with Captain Aaron twice now and have a 3rd trip booked. Both trips I mentioned are fish species I'd never caught and that I'd like to hunt them. And he says, both trips he put me on those fish effortlessly. He puts in the work and will burn a tank of gas to get you what you want. And with reviews like that, man, like you're going to get people coming back, talking about you, wanting to do it again. So how do people sort of find out more about your charter, what you're offering, and, and maybe book?
Well, the best way is to go on the website, dibsonbottom.com, and it's got a decent amount of information on there. Most people reach out to me because with spearfishing, there's a lot of specific questions you want to have, and I have no problem getting back on people with that. And quite frankly, the YouTube is a good resource because I'm showing exactly what it is that we're going out and doing. Now, is every day going to be a banger? Are we shooting all these fish on the YouTube videos? No, but we give it hell every single day. And like that guy said, I'll burn a tank of gas to find fish. I treat my clients like they're my friends. I would do anything to put them on fish. As a charter captain, we don't enjoy bad days. We don't want to have bad days. So I just do my best to go the extra mile.
Jeremy Gamble from Spearing Magazine recommended you to me back in the day, and I've been meaning to get you on the podcast for a while because a few people have asked for you. And a part of it comes out of this reputation for what you're doing as a charter boat. Where do you leave from? Do you leave from Key West there? What is the vessel sort of day to day? Like what days are you operating and so on?
So I'm actually out of Stock Island. First off, thanks, Jeremy. He's a great individual. I've spent a lot of time with him. Jeremy's a very good friend of mine. He's been an excellent human being throughout my career. Anyways, I'm out of what's called Stock Island. So it's like kind of Key West's little sister island. It's the closest island to Key West. I run a 27-foot contender, well, technically 30-foot contender, center console, twin Mercury, 200s. It gets us where we need to go.
Have you got a duck board on the back? Or is that what's given it the extra 3 foot?
Yeah, it's got that little platform on it.
Man, those contender boats are wicked. There's a couple of them getting around over here in Australia. Very well made and very well regarded boats.
Yeah, I'm very happy with mine. It's actually a 2004, but it's tried and true. That thing is still steaming along.
Yeah, nice. So how many people are you taking out at a time? What's the day look like?
I normally do a max of 4. I actually just recently, it was August 1st, I'm only offering spearfishing trips now, just with kind of all the exposure and stuff like that. Quite frankly, I want to focus on one thing and be really, really good at it. I've been fishing longer than I've actually been spearfishing, but frankly, I enjoy being in the water a little more, and I feel like I'm a little more effective at it down here, especially with the water being so clear. If I'm fishing looking at the bottom in 70, it's absolute torture.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that. Yeah. Many Spearos are just terrible line fishermen as well. Like, I don't know. I always lack the confidence and the sort of the strategic ability to, like really sort of outwit the fish and put a plan together and stuff like that. Like, a lot of thought goes into it. Line fishermen are very good at what they do. I always just wanted to get in. I'm more tactile, I think, rather than, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the draw of spearfishing is it's hands-on and primitive, and it's a very intense personal experience. I tell people it's the closest thing to, hunting underwater. It's literally is what it is, and it scratches an itch that fishing just doesn't do for most people.
Man, I like some of your backdoor spearfishing. Like you and me were chatting before. I really like some of the mangrove stuff, like just the Lajanidae. You guys call them. You got mangrove snapper and red snapper, and I'm actually a little bit unsure about what the different distinction is between them and cubera. Can you just give us a quick overview?
So the red snappers get a lot big. The cuberas get the biggest of all, but it's funny because the cuberas will be kind of spawn and grow up in the mangroves, and you'll see 10, 15, 20 pound cuberas in 3-4 feet of water in the mangroves. Red snappers never venture that far in. And then our mangrove snappers obviously are named mangrove snapper because that's where they grow up. That's where they spend most of their life before they head out to the reef. Some of them end up staying, but.
And they're all Lajanidae, aren't they? They're all sort of related.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all in that snapper family. That's one of the things it's funny is most people that come down and aren't familiar, I get a lot of beginner trips. They cannot differentiate them from apart, which it's funny to me because they all look so very different because I've spent so much time, but they can never tell them apart.
Do you suggest to people that they watch, like for me, like when I moved to Queensland, because I was from New Zealand, so you get in the water here and you've got this mix of temperate water species and tropical species. And so there's like literally, I think there's more than 200 species we have access to. So coming here from a country where we maybe have 20 commonly shot spearing species, having to sort of learn how to ID them and stuff is quite difficult. Do you suggest people like watch YouTube videos and learn how they look underwater or their swimming patterns? Like, what's your sort of?
Yeah, I think YouTube is a good resource for that. And I've been saving footage for probably 8 or 9 months now. I'm working on a very detailed species identification video, as like you mentioned, as far as swimming behavior, how they're going to act underwater. Because a lot of times the water's murky. You're looking for behavior or just the shape in general. So yeah, I've been stockpiling footage because as everything is growing, I'm getting a lot of first timers that have never done it. They just want to get in the water. So that's going to be kind of a prerequisite for when they book a trip. I'm going to say, hey, 2 days out, you need to watch this video a bunch and I want you to study these fish. So I think YouTube is a good handle for that. And you always see these like little charts of fish shapes and colors and stuff. That doesn't mean anything. The fish it looks so different underwater, natural, alive. It is not the same. So yeah. I think that's a really good resource for it is YouTube and Instagram, all the stuff you see videos, but real life underwater footage makes the difference.
One thing I noticed when I started was people would just like, buy a species ID book. There's a really well-made set in Australia called Grant's Guide to Fishes, and it's just phenomenal. Really well-made book, quite expensive, just beautiful books, but pretty useless for your average Spearo because there's 2,000 species in there. They're not
Yeah.
prioritized or ranked in any order that you're going to encounter in the water. You know, like I would like to see a video where it's just like, hey, these are the first 10 species you're likely to encounter. And then sort of after that, these are progressively more and more difficult and rare species. And this is what they look like as well. Because for a noob getting in the water that doesn't have a fishing background, or maybe even they do have a line fishing background, it's quite challenging.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, even the behavior sets them apart in certain situations. The way that I handle it, typically I have them watch YouTube videos or I'll show them some underwater photos. I say, these are the 8 fish you're going to shoot. Everything else, ignore. Don't even look at it. Don't ask me don't ask me what it is because you can't shoot it. So don't bother. Focus on these and that's it.
Yeah. Keep it simple, eh? Like that. I like that. I guess the other problem we're sort of circling around too, you see a lot of anger among experienced Spearos about mis-IDing fish, or, you know, those social media posts were like, hey, can someone ID this? They really get under the wick of a lot of experienced guys, but part of it's just that natural learning curve. You just wish they wouldn't put that on social media for everyone to see rather than just message one person.
Yeah, I kind of understand that. But at the same time, I kind of give them a little bit of acknowledgement for having the guts to go that route. But at the same time, you know, I at one point in my life, I didn't know what some fish were. We all started from the very bottom, so it's like I try to give those people a little bit of grace and try and understand, you know, instead of roasting them.
Well, one other thing that comes along with mis-IDing is mis-sizing a fish. Like sometimes you guys have got a slot size as well, I believe, like where you have a lower and an upper size for some of the species. Is that right?
We don't have, I don't think anything comes to mind as on the spearing side of things that we're allowed to spear that has a slot. But the sizing thing, that's one of the things that bugs me. But with my clients, for the most part, if they're beginners and they're unsure, I'm in the water with them doing my very best to, you know, create opportunities. And this is the right fish. This is the right size. My general rule of thumb is if at any point you question it for a millisecond, it's probably not big enough. And it's not worth it. We're going to see another one. We'll wait for the next one.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I even like sometimes with competition Spearos, like guys that are very good, they're very good at sizing fish. So they know and they remember like score sheets in terms of minimum sizes and all the rest of it. I've never been a competitive diver. I've never had the time and energy to devote to it. I always just shoot stuff that I want to eat. And I don't want to fillet stuff that's under like 3 pounds most of the time, you know. Like sometimes a whole fish is good. Like I'm not saying you can't use smaller fish, but a lot of the time that's kind of my rough guide to a lot of species.
No, I hear that. I'm all about that. A lot of people ask me why I fish for certain species. I'm like, listen, I'm a meat eater. I'm just out here. I'm just another shark that can walk on land, but I'm out to eat.
Yeah.
The bigger, the better.
So sizing species though, I think that's a good rule of thumb. So any doubt in your mind at all, just don't pull the trigger and wait. That's a good one for them. What are some of the common things you see with the new guys you take out, the constant advice and reminders you're giving them? What are the similar errors they make?
The biggest thing, and it's almost impossible to avoid this, but you just repetition, just try to stay calm. The biggest thing is if you can just learn to calm yourself. And I know it's hard, especially if I have them for one day, you know, there's only a X amount of opportunities, but that calm demeanor can make the difference between, say, especially like Wahoo spearfishing. You get one chance the entire day. If you get too anxious and just, you know, blow your load too early, that was your only opportunity. So that, and the piece of advice that I give for all beginners, I tell them a rushed shot is worse than no shot, because once you're unloaded, you missed your opportunity on that fish. You don't know if it's going to turn around. Don't throw Hail Marys. All my beginner guns, my rental guns, I single wrap them because I don't want them throwing Hail Marys all day, tearing out a fish. Take the time, learn to be a good hunter, and make each shot count and put it where it's going to hold.
Yeah, nice. I like it. You'd be if people can afford it, I'd 100% recommend going out with an experienced guide. Like, this like There's a lot of freediving courses out there, which I actually like and I believe in for the safety side of things, but learning spearfishing is something completely different. And I haven't seen many like spearfishing courses that, are available, widely available. So going out with someone like yourself is probably a really good idea for a lot of people, as particularly if they're in your area.
Yeah, I've actually I've had a lot of requests for like a spearfishing camp, and I've been working on it for realistically probably a year and a half. I'm very meticulous on how I put things together, and I want it to be right. And as far as like resources and videos, I want it to be all encompassing species, like hunting techniques, all this stuff. So I'm hoping by next summer I will actually have something like that available. Because like you said, it's not for your average person who doesn't live near the water and can't do it a lot themselves to learn. I mean, there's not a lot of that opportunity out there for those people to spend time with someone more experienced with them. And that's why I tell them, everyone says, what's the best way to learn how to spearfish? I say, go spend time with people that are better divers than you.
Mm. Yeah, I'm a freediving instructor. I've started designing a spearfishing course as well. And like I learned how to teach as well. So like I understand most people don't, like I talk about the conscious sort of unconscious bias loop. Like you get these people when they're learning and if you don't know what you are doing and you know nothing about it, you're unconsciously incompetent. If you start to understand what you don't know, then you become consciously incompetent. And then once you advance past that, then you become consciously competent because you know what you've learned. But then a lot of Spearos fall in the last bracket, which is unconsciously competent. They don't even know what they know. They just know it. And so trying to learn from those people can be really difficult because they don't even understand what it is you're learning. They've forgotten how they learned what they know and they're unable to teach it. And they also don't respect the learning journey that needs to take place in order for you to be able to start doing some of these more difficult tasks. Spearfishing, despite being relatively simple when you're quite experienced, when you're starting out, it can seem very overwhelming, particularly if you don't have a strong background in the water. Great news, guys. Adam Stern has made his freedivingfamily.com courses available at a discount for the Noob Spearo community. If you get on freedivingfamily.com, use the code Spearo, you'll get 20% off any course. There's a bunch of sick courses on there. There's an equalizing stage 1. There's an equalizing advanced techniques video there. They're two of my absolute favorites. If you have any problems with equalizing, go to freedivingfamily.com, get Adam's course and use the code Spearo to get 20% off any course. Check it out at freedivingfamily.com. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at noobspearo.com/audible. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone or Android phone. Get amongst it, noobspearo.com/audible. Free trial, free book, no brainer. That's noobspearo.com/audible. In the world of freedive spearfishing, there's no magic breathing technique that's all of a sudden going to get you down and shoot massive fish at depth and holding big bottom times, but there is a way to do it safer and smarter, take down more fuel to maximize the time that you have there. Learn at noobspearo.com/TED with Ted Hardy from Immersion Freediving. If you take down more fuel, you can stay for longer. Learning to take a bigger breath is not such a big deal. Ted breaks it down for you with a free online course at noobspearo.com/TED. Take down 20 to 30% more air just by learning how to take a full breath. Again, learn how to do it free at noobspearo.com/TED. So with your spearfishing camp, what sort of minimum time are you looking at in order to take someone from, say, 0 to consciously and competently shooting and safely shooting a fish in, say, like 30 feet of water?
So that's kind of been the biggest thing for me, is trying to figure out, and I've had enough beginners come out that I can see what I can get them to in a day. So I think realistically, I personally would like it to be 4 days. There's going to be 1 day on land with resources, running through the guns and everything, species identification, sizing, all that stuff. I would like it to be 4 days. Whether or not that's realistic, I know that's a lot of days for someone to take vacation and get weather windows and all that stuff. So tentatively, I think that's what it would be. So that's what I'm shooting for.
I've done the same thing. I boiled mine down to a 3-day, but I was honestly not happy with the restrictions of 3 days. And it would be a very intensive 3 days in order to get it.
Absolutely.
I like the idea of some enclosed water stuff. So where you learn some of the micro techniques, like I actually like the idea of target shooting. I like the idea of like demonstrating a controlled swim and rescue and stuff like that. All those things that you get from a freediving course, but built into a spearfishing course. But I've found with a lot of guys that are teaching spearfishing courses, they want to teach advanced shit like, how to get down to 70 feet and, do, whatever dives and all the rest of it. It's like a lot of people don't really need or want that. And they will learn that themselves once they've been given a baseline of sort of training and understanding. What do you think about that?
I couldn't agree with that more. I think there are some people out there who, like you said, are gung-ho and they're trying to teach everyone how to shoot these trophy fish. You've got to crawl before you can walk. Like you need to be in there shooting targets. You need to learn how to drop and weight yourself properly so your feet aren't up above your head while you're trying to track a fish that you're just going to spook because you look like a giant flailing starfish. Like those little micro things. And like you said, consciously, I can't remember what the last one was.
Unconsciously competent.
Unconsciously competent.
Yeah.
All those little things. And it's most of those people that are self-taught that are that way.
Yeah.
You forgot all the stuff you went through, and there's so many little things on a daily basis that I don't think about. And a client will ask me, why did you do that? Or how did you do that? How did you know that fish was going to do that? It's just, there's so many little micro details that you can kind of crash course a lot of that, but a lot of it's just the fundamental. A lot of it's the fundamentals. And I think that's more important than anything, because once you lay that baseline, your average person is going to be able to take that and run with it and build their skills on top of that.
There's a controversial thing that has happened in this country, and I think it's happened more broadly too. There have been people that wanted to mandate a minimum certification level for spearfishing. And I think the arguments both for and against are very interesting, and it's a great conversation to have. I can share my opinion on it all day, Aaron, but I would love to hear what you think just off the top of your head.
So you need credentials to be able to go spearfishing?
Like you do with the driver's license.
I find that very interesting.
It's a big topic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
As someone who, so I spent a lot of time scuba diving, not a lot of time, a decent amount of time scuba diving when I was really young. I was probably 10 years old when I got certified. And I did a few dives with my dad. And then after that, I kind of fell out of it and got back into it. I was probably 16, 17 years old. And I essentially was shore diving, teaching myself all this stuff in a place called the Indian River. And the visibility was, when I say 2 feet, I would lay on the bottom and shoot shadows. I didn't know what the fish were for the longest time. And you would just you'd see the silhouette of the fish. So that's where I came from. And I have a hard time understanding why you would want to, make someone have to get that certification. But at the same time, with the exposure that spearfishing is gaining and the traction, and it's the new thing, everybody wants to try it, more accidents are happening. So I could see both sides, but I think that's going to be a tough one to sell.
I'll be honest, Australia, and I'm not having a go at everyone here. I'm just saying, like, in New Zealand, we're guilty of a fair amount of like nanny state thinking. And so by that, I mean, like, people want you to have a license for everything. Like, and I'll be honest, I went and did a firearms license years after growing up shooting firearms. And I'll be real honest with you, it didn't give me any more information. And I don't think I retained anything from that other than, don't shoot, things on the skyline, just shit like that, which, like if you spend an afternoon with a fairly responsible gun owner, they will teach you all that shit anyway, and you'll learn it in the context of actually shooting the gun and having some fun. And it's far more likely to stick with you. I find the mechanism that bureaucracy imparts to most of these licensing things to not actually achieve what it sets out to, which is give people a safe baseline of safety and understanding and competency. So I feel like if a course can stand up on its own merits and people pay to come and do it because it's good, then that's probably better serving our community anyway. But anyway, like I said, I've got bigger
I
penis.
definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Man, we went heavy. Sorry.
Well,
So I do this. Sorry. I listened to your interview on Wild Fishing Game podcast with my brothers over there. I enjoy those boys. And I remember you talking with Justin about your favorite fish, Wahoo. Why do you like Wahoo from the ocean to the plate? Why is it one of your favorite species? And take us through hunting them, a couple of memorable stories, and then how you like plating them up.
So if you've ever experienced them, you've ever watched a video, if you're new into spearfishing, you've seen a Wahoo video. It's like the ultimate, I mean, other than a dogtooth tuna or the big tunas, I think it's like the ultimate species. There's just something about hunting them. They're like these ghosts. And if you've ever drifted for them, you're just sitting there bored out of your mind and they sneak up on you every time and it runs chills over your body. I've shot hundreds of Wahoo. Every single one that swims by gives me the chills, and it's a feeling that you can't fake. So the hunting is just there. They do it to you. I don't know what it is about them. They're just an amazing fish from when you see them come in to you shoot them and land them.
What's your biggest one or your most memorable hunt?
So I've shot a few in the 60s. I've never broken the 70-pound mark here.
That's still a big fish.
We rarely get them down in Key West. We get a lot. So we get a lot of numbers, but we don't get the big ones. The most memorable for me probably was last year. I had actually a good friend of mine, kind of client, but he's a good friend of mine for years and years. His name's Clayton Love. He came down, never done it before. And if you've ever spearfished Wahoo, there's two people that go Wahoo spearing. The people who shoot one their first time ever trying, or the people who have been 15 times and never seen one. There's not really any in between. So Clayton was one of those guys. We went out, I'm not lying, we floated for 45 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. It wasn't long for Wahoo standards, and didn't see anything. And I turn around and the school's coming towards us, and the big one is leading the pack, and it comes right at us. And I turn my head out of the water. I say, Clayton, get ready. Here it comes. And this 70-pound, it was 71 or 72, comes in, squares straight up on him like textbook. You could not ask for a better shot. Clayton, mind you, has never been blue water spearfishing in his entire life. The deepest he's ever dove was like 18 feet shooting hogfish. And 2 hours in, he shoots a 71-pound Wahoo. We got back to the dock, and I said, Clayton, as a friend of yours, do not ever go Wahoo spearfishing ever again, because you're going to be
disappointed. That's in some ways a delightful story, and then I can relate to what you're saying. Like, early success sometimes leads you to have false expectations every time you go.
Absolutely, and those are one of those fish that, like I said, it's one or the other. There's not really any in between. But getting back on track, after you shoot them, like, that's the best part. But they're such a versatile fish as far as on the plate. Like, you can do sashimi, you can do ceviche, cooked. They are incredible, just all around. It's a white tuna, and it's just very versatile, and it's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. You and your partner Madeline seem like you enjoy the whole experience of spearfishing, all the way from. Because some guys love putting together just the montages of, all their favorite shots and holding up the fish and stuff. And I get that side of it. I love that side of it too. A lot of them miss that journey to the plate. You guys seem to do it. Give us a cooked Wahoo recipe that you like.
So one of my favorites is probably, I do these Wahoo sandwiches. So you take, the tricky part about Wahoo is it is a mackerel, so it dries out if you overcook it. I literally cook Wahoo with a stopwatch. You have about 12 to 15 second window from when it's medium rare to overdone.
Okay.
So I just sear it. It's about a minute on each side for about a 1/2-inch medallion. I roast red peppers. I do a thin slice of mozzarella, and I do like a wasabi mayo on some Cuban bread and a little bit of avocado. And some people think cheese on fish is weird, but if you do this right, or instead of wasabi mayo, do like a sriracha.
Yeah.
Roasted red pepper, seared Wahoo, avocado, wasabi mayo. Oh. You can get crazy with it. Throw a little lettuce on there, whatever you want, but it's an amazing sandwich. It's unbelievable.
I've changed my ideas about cheese with fish. Like I had a Carpaccio a little while ago. I think it was Wahoo too, actually. And we had this like really expensive Italian Parmesan cheese. Jeepers, it was
Yeah.
just absolutely banging. I loved it with black pepper, just so good.
Yeah. It's a controversial issue, especially on YouTube. You get especially the Italians up north. They don't like cheese on fish. My roommate Will is a chef, and his family pretty much crucifies him every time he puts cheese on fish. They'll shun him for a couple weeks.
Man, if it's going in pasta, my personal opinion is pasta never goes without cheese. You've just got to pair it with the right one.
I like that.
Yeah. Man, awesome. I have yet to shoot my first Wahoo. I have started seeing them, but I've never really been out just deliberately targeting them, which it sounds like it's this fish that lends well to like a little bit of deliberate effort specifically targeting them.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of opportunities where you're accidentally going to stumble upon one. I have maybe 4 or 5 stories of Wahoo that weren't supposed to be where they were. For the most part, you got to put your time in. You got to sit out there and drift and be bored and just wait.
You using a flasher, throw flashes? What are you sort of using?
So we use throw flashers. There's a local company here that makes them. You can make them yourself. There's a local company called Merc Crew that makes them, and I buy them from them. They're pretty basic and straightforward, but they work. And then we use the throw flashers. A lot of people chum. I'll be honest with you. In the past 4 years, I've chummed maybe 2 or 3 days. We get the bull sharks really bad, so the more you chum, the more trouble you're asking for.
All right, cool. So you're just drifting patches of reef where they are known to frequent, and then you're using a throw flasher when they come in.
Yep.
Or are you doing some drops, just throwing it into the blue and then sort of swimming down and getting it retrieved?
A lot of people drop. I'm not a big drop guy. I want to be on the surface with a good breath when they do come in. I've seen so many people drop and then they're on their way up and they follow them on the way up and then they're on the surface freaking out because they have no air and they got to get back down. You're kind of asking for a rush shot there, but
you see it with like we call them Spanish mackerel here. I think you guys call them king mackerel there. Or they're Scomborus commercent, I think is their name. But anyway, quite often when you're drifting for them, someone will do a bomb drop to the bottom, and as they're coming up, they always come in. Are Wahoo like that? Are they ever like that?
No, so our kingfish stay low like that, and they will follow you up. On average, when our Wahoo come in, they're shallower than 40 feet, and they typically won't follow you. They kind of come in. You have a short window of them being curious, and then they're gone just as quickly as they came. They're like ghosts.
So let's just say I've got a school coming in at me. Or maybe they're just swimming just out of range and they're sort of heading off on that slow course that they do, and you can try and chase them. It doesn't seem to work in my experience. What do you do in those situations? Is that where the throw flasher comes in?
So, and there's exceptions to all this. If they're coming in and they look curious, typically I'm just going to engage them. I'm going to get to their level. I'm not going to drop at them. I kind of want to run parallel to them, if you will, and just kind of meet them in the direction that they're going. Now, if they start to rear out a little and kind of turn, that's when I'll start to use that throw flasher. And it's more of a distraction to get them to focus on that so I can close the gap than it is. Sometimes they'll turn right on it, but typically that's more of a distraction. And if they're on their way out, I'm rarely going to chase them because there's not a lot of scenarios where a Wahoo is going to change its mind and turn around and let you get a shot at it.
So you just have a quiet cry there on the surface and await your next opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, well, I can relate to that one. Just my Wahoo spearfishing has just been all tears so far and no joy.
I told you there's only 1 or 2 roads, and you got the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, I think spearfishing, like, it's one of the appeals. It's like you sometimes spearfishing is about what you haven't shot rather than what you have. Like you're always like those fish that keep you like, you know, like you have like a half an hour hunt with one fish and then it outwits you and you don't get it. You know, the other ones that keep you coming back and really looking forward to the next time you get a chance to hunt them. Is that, would you share that sort of passion?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you went out there and shot the same fish every single time you tried, after a certain point, it's going to lose its glam at some point. But I think that desire and that just like the challenge, and it's all a part of it. Like you said, even going a little further back, it's all part of that journey leading up to putting that fish on the plate. That whole thing comes full circle, and the fish that elude you are the ones that really drive you back into the water every day.
Would you describe the Key West area and surrounds as a target-rich environment?
Very much so. And I think what's really great about Key West is for the most part, each season is bringing a different fishery. Like our wintertime, the Wahoo show up, and then right behind them, the cobia will show up. And then there's some blackfin tunas, which are hard to spear. And then right when the spring starts to slow down, you lose those pelagic species. You think it's time to get bored. Well, then grouper season opens. You've got grouper through the entire summer, and you've got all your snappers, your mutton snapper spawn, your mangrove, your cuberas, excuse me. And in the spring, you've got African pompano, and there's king mackerels. And I mean, there's just so many different species to target. And it really is a healthy fishery. If you know where to go, obviously, it's a wonderful place.
Mm. Man, your Instagram is also good. Dibs on Adventures. You write these terrible captions that are often 3 or 4 words at most, which I can 100% relate to. It's like, shit, I just got to get this up there. And you're just like, you run out of like witty quotes and funny shit to say, so you just chuck up the photo, which I quite like. There's this really cool video of a massive hammerhead shark in there. Man, they're a cool animal. I wanted to talk about sort of sharks in your area. From my understanding, you're getting the occasional hammerhead in, but lots of bull sharks and tiger sharks as well. Talk about the shark situation there and how you manage it and how you coach people through it.
So I'd say the most common shark we have is bulls. The most common is bull, lemons, reef. I wish I saw more tigers, I'll be honest with you. I see a few here and there, but definitely not as much as the others. Hammerheads come through pretty heavy in the wintertime. But I think our biggest competitor are lemons and bulls. And it kind of depends on which area you're in, what you're doing. For the most part, our sharks, compared to a lot of places on the planet, our sharks are very mellow. And sharks is a very sensitive topic, depending on where you go, who you're talking to, whatever. But for the most part, I think we're blessed because our sharks, for the most part, now don't quote me on this, this is not expert advice. Our sharks, for the most part, will back down if you present yourself as a predator. I personally maybe lose 2 fish a year, and it's on accident because I'm not paying attention.
Do you think that's because of the beard, though?
Probably. I think that's what it is. It's got to be the beard.
Yeah.
Very, very intimidating. I mean, sharks can't grow beards, so I would be intimidated.
Yeah. Bruce is like, he's been through puberty and just bails. I don't know if you've seen Finding Nemo and get the reference there.
Oh, yeah.
So you said as soon as you present as a predator. So give us some ways of doing that. So
for me personally, and again, if you're not comfortable doing this, I do not recommend doing it. The second I shoot a fish, and no matter the scenario, obviously Wahoo's different. You can't get that to you. I get that fish to my person as quickly as possible, and I pretty much bear hug it, secure it. And I've never had a shark come past that barrier once I have that fish. Now, when you let fish dangle and squirm and flop and create all those vibrations and action in the water, I always tell my clients, action brings action. If you let that fish sit out there and give the shark the opportunity, he's going to take it every single time. They're opportunists. They're looking for a meal. If I'm the predator, I have the fish. They know that. 99 out of 100 times, I've never had any issues. And I'm braining the fish right away. Now, if you have it on your belt and it's still flopping, you're probably going to have an issue. Mm. So I get it to myself. I secure it, brain it, and that's my method. And I'm undefeated so far, knock on wood.
One thing I noticed about all your vids too, particularly actually all your hunting, I noticed, you show the whole process. So you show the braining and then you show bleeding as well. That's awesome, talking about reducing action. For braining, how do you teach people that are new to it?
So on the majority of your species, it's going to be about, a half to 3/4 inch, depending on the size of the fish. It gets bigger as the fish gets bigger, but it's about a 45-degree up behind the eye, back towards the tail, behind the eye. And the mistake most people make is when they come down, they want to come directly on the top ridge of the head, where you come kind of at a 45 and you'll actually feel the skull. And every time they feel the skull, they stop and they're going, why isn't it dead? Well, you have to push past that bone. So you come in at a 45, like I said, 45 behind the eye, and then the knife is also at a 45 coming down. I actually have a YouTube video on it because that it's actually something that a lot of people struggle with. And it's one of those things where I don't even second guess it because it's natural. I do it so many times. Yeah.
Unconscious competence. Yeah.
So that's kind of my method. I know that was long-winded, but
no, that's good. And I mean, that's the explanation it requires. And do you give it the loving twist when you've penetrated the skull?
Yeah, I give it a little loop, kind of in and like you would scoop ice cream out, just kind of twirl it around, and
the old brain scoop.
You'll know.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. And bleeding too, which I was quite pleased to see. Like, a lot of Spearos don't bleed their fish, and it's just like, come on, dudes, what are you doing here? Describe bleeding.
So typically it's a little clear membrane, almost on every fish. It's going to be a little clear membrane right under the gills where the neck or throat would be. That main artery runs that heart, and you just run that knife straight from the very bottom where the gills start and kind of up towards the head. And 99% of the time you're going to hit just enough, and you'll see it. There's no mistake when you bleed them properly.
And why should guys want to bleed their fish, you reckon?
I personally like to do it. I think that especially on your sashimi grade fish, anything you're doing ceviche with, you'll notice a big difference on meat quality. And something else, especially for the snappers and bigger groupers or jacks, if you don't bleed your fish and you take it to the fillet table, if you notice it is an absolute bloody mess and you're filleting your fish and it is just covered with blood, which, yeah, it's the fish's blood, but I'm not looking to eat that. I want a nice, clean, white fillet.
Nice, man. Yeah, cool. Awesome. I was telling you I watched your Heaven on Earth vid this morning before we jumped on the call. You managed to capture what you call a slicker there. We call it a glass out here.
A glass out. I like that.
Yeah, but a slicker I like too because it's just like, I don't know, there's something special about zero wind, an amazing sort of, it seems to be unique to different pressure systems as well. Like you must have had a big high pressure system off the coast there.
We had a lot of wind. Last week we paid for all the calm weather we've been having, and it blew. It was like wintertime. It blew 20 knots for probably 5 or 6 days. And whatever went by, it took everything with it. And for 3 days, actually today and tomorrow were the same. And it is just glass calm. And those moments, those like peaceful, quiet moments are so rare out on the ocean because typically you hear the boat slap or the water slap in the boat's hull or something, but it was just dead, quiet, calm. And that's just such a rare treat out on the water.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like the vid, man. It's just like, you guys are just sitting there and you didn't even want to talk because it's just like ruins the silence. And like
we turned the cameras off for like 20 minutes. I know YouTube land makes things seem different, but we literally turned the cameras off for like 20 minutes and sat there. It was awesome.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, those moments, man. Like I think spearfishing's made up as much of those moments as it is the rest of the experience. Like and we don't do a great job sometimes of sharing that story and that experience with the rest of the world. Like, like I like having the stereo blasting sometimes when I'm on the way out to the spot with my mates and we're all just joking around being dickheads. Like to me, that's some of the funnest times like in my spearfishing. And I love that part of it as much as I do the rest of it, So hats off to you for your videos for capturing some of those other moments that happen as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that, we talked about it earlier. It's not so much the fish or the final product as it is the whole journey and just everything about it. It's hard to explain, but once you feel it, you'll know.
Now you were also telling me, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this, but you put it in the email that like that video hasn't been performing as well as the rest of your things. With YouTube, it seems odd sometimes what works and what doesn't. Like, why do you think maybe that one? Have you got any ideas why it hasn't landed as well as some of your other stuff?
I honestly don't know. Maybe it's the thumbnail. YouTube's a funny animal.
100%.
Right when you think you understand it, they throw you a curveball. But quite frankly, if my fellow, we'll call them YouTubers, I guess that's what I am now. I didn't know it, but I'm a YouTuber.
Sorry, man. You're a YouTuber.
Everyone's been telling me that views are down the last month, and it may be a seasonal thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't look too much into it. I try not to be clickbaity. I just put out what I'm doing. If people like it, great. If they don't want to watch it, I'm not mad at them.
I've talked to a few different spearing YouTubers now, and the ebbs and flows of it seems to be quite annoying at times, I think, because you haven't changed necessarily whatever it is you're doing. It's just the dreaded algorithm seems to just do something. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing with being on someone else's platform, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you said, ebbs and flows. And I try not to look too much into it, because the second you start questioning it and trying to figure it out, you're just going to stress yourself out for no reason. Just keep putting out videos and the rest will work.
Boom, 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 boom. I want you in my... Oh, no. I've got... Oh, no. Oops, I meant to be recording adverts for Audible. Today's show sponsors. I can't get over it. You busted me singing my favourite classic song from Venga Boys. Anyway, I've got a bunch of books that I'm listening to on Audible right now, and I reckon you should too. Breath or Breathe. I'm not sure what it is, actually. I think it's Breath, The New Science for a Lost Art by James Nestor. Phenomenal information here about breathing. And I think James came about this idea from his background learning how to freedive. Check that out on Audible at noobspearo.com/Audible for free. noobspearo.com/Audible. Free trial, free book. No brainer. That's noobspearo.com/Audible. Do you like to penetrate? Great news. Penetrator Fins, today's Noob Spearo podcast sponsor, are tough as nails. Robust, dependable performers with beyond industry standard warranty. Communicate direct with Larry and his team 24/7 for all your fin inquiries at penetratorfins.com or at penetratorfins on Instagram. Baby spum finish. These things are smooth as silk. They glide through the water. They give you that awesome balance between power and efficiency. This is Penetrator Fins. Use the code NoobSpearo to save $25 on any pair of Penetrator Fins at penetratorfins.com. That's right, use the code NoobSpearo to save $25 on any pair of Penetrator Fins at penetratorfins.com. You like having a good time, I can tell. What's one of the funniest things that's ever happened to you out spearfishing?
Oh man, I'd have to dig deep for that one. I don't know. There's a lot of like...
I don't know if you've listened to the podcast, but I'm very partial to a poo story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go Aquablog, bro. I'm in on it.
This was years ago. Oh, love a good poo story. But this was years ago. So during lobster season, obviously lobster season's a nightmare down here. I don't know what it's like over there for you guys, but during mini season, it's absolutely dreadful. There's a million boats running around. So the lobsters get worked over real good anyways. After a certain point, all what you think are your spots are pretty much, they're worked over. Everyone's got them. So you start dragging. So you drag your people behind the boat to look for new spots. So we have one of our buddies that was been giving shit to the other buddy all day was in the back dragging on the rope, and the other guy sat off the back and took a shit right upstream of him and drug him right into it with the boat.
Now that is classic. That's good. That's good. That's a pair of good dive buddies there. I like that.
Yeah.
Wow. What was his reaction when he got back on the boat? Was he stoked?
He was not thrilled about it. I will say that. They exchanged words.
So the top 20 YouTube channels that got listed in the Noob Spearo community, I've asked everyone for a video submission, so I asked you for it. But maybe a couple of those questions I could ask now, like what's been maybe the most memorable comment, even if it was a troll, on your YouTube videos?
I honestly don't know. So I actually reply to all my comments, which is kind of insane. I don't even know why I do it. It's more so because I can clear the notifications, and the notifications drive me crazy. I'm that guy that can't have any notifications on his phone.
Yeah. I'm the same.
But
I get it.
It's the people that will tell me for absolutely no reason that the way that I cooked something was wrong. Like, you should have done this. I'm like, well, you should do it when you make the sandwich. Like, I'm the one eating the sandwich. Why are you telling me what to do with my food? This is so irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just people on the internet. You know, once you go out to the interwebs, you never know what you're going to have come back at you. So
yeah. I find I think some people have a massive disconnect between how they comment on videos and who they are in real life. I'm just like there's a way to talk to people. Like you can say, hey, Aaron, man, I really enjoyed that cooking video. I do it slightly different. You know, this is the way I do it. But It's just like, you did that wrong, asshole. Like, it's just like, come on, man. Like, I don't know.
Some people that leave comments, I don't know how they function in day-to-day life.
Yeah,
It's mind-blowing.
Oh, they call everyone like a wet blanket, or you're fucking soft, get used to it, or whatever. Like,
so I'm really good at leaving snarky remarks.
Yeah.
That kind of say fuck off, but I don't actually say it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at that. So I actually enjoy the comments. I have a good time in there with the trolls. They normally don't reply after I'm done with them.
I think the other thing too, man, like when you yourself on whatever it is you do, and people like you, like sometimes other people will gang up on them for you, like get out of here, dickhead, sort of thing. This is our place.
So it's funny because the channel, and I never in a million years would imagine this, it's to the point where someone will say something negative and there'd be 11 other people on his ass, and before you know it, he deleted his comment. He's out of there.
I had there's a couple of guys on the podcast a while ago, and they got accused of fishing in a marine park, and someone got on and on my community and spoke some shit about him, and I was just kind of like, if you understand exactly what happened and you were there or you've seen proof of something, that's all well and good. Make your remarks, but I stuck up for him because I was just like, man, I personally know those dudes and they are salt of the earth, good human beings. And if they did it, I'd be enormously surprised. And until someone has proven that it has actually happened, then just friggin' leave them alone. Like, because I don't know. When you have good people around you, they tend to look after you. That was kind of my point.
Yeah, that's actually a funny point. You're saying pretty much they made an assumption, and that's one of the biggest things that I've not struggled with YouTube, but I've noticed that. For example, I'll fillet a fish and I'll cook just the fillets for dinner. Well, I save all the carcasses. I eat the head, the rack. I eat everything on all my fish. And I'll get all these comments. You should have saved the heads. Why did I'm like, you didn't see what I did with them. Did you see me throw them in the trash can? Why are you making these assumptions?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same type of thing. And again, it's the internet. It's people are going to do that. It's funny.
I think sometimes we're going deep and dark again here. Sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, we are. No, it's good.
I was going to say, like, sometimes people will say that because you now have a platform and an audience, that you have a certain duty of care or a responsibility to always be promoting all the best and safest and greatest ethical stuff all the time. And do you find that a little bit of a pressure with it?
So more recently, yeah, I kind of do, but at the same time, I've always held myself very accountable for my decisions, and I find it funny that someone would try to say that their mistake was a result of something that I did. Like, at the end of the day, you make your decisions. So if you see me free diving with sharks and, pulling my fish in and all this stuff, you make that decision.
Yeah.
And one of the big ones is people see me on my little boat and they go, why don't you have a life jacket on? Well, I'm sitting down driving my boat. The odds of me falling out are almost impossible. Even if I fainted, I'd fall on the boat. And it's a weird pressure because it makes me worry and go, am I sending a bad message, especially to the younger generation? I never ever want to do that. But at the end of the day, I'm a grown up. I'm following the laws. It's not required by law that I do like wear a life jacket while driving my boat. I don't have to do that, but it's kind of it's a strange feeling. And I hope people understand that I have good intentions. I would never try to encourage anyone to do the wrong thing because I personally never would do the wrong thing. I try to keep, a high level of integrity with everything that I do.
That's good, man. I think when you hold yourself and to a high standard with regards to this stuff and you're thoughtful about it, then you're doing the best job you can. And everyone's human and, whatever. I've had a few struggles with this recently. Like, some people dislike. I've heard some feedback among some older divers that they don't like the podcast necessarily because it gives new divers too much information too soon, and they feel like spearfishing is a gradual. I'm trying to represent their views in a well balanced here instead of just being precious about it. But they would say that. You need to spend a long time doing it, and over time you develop the sense and the wisdom in order to use some of the skills and techniques and ideas in order to dive at depth, competently and safely and stuff like that. So I kind of get what you're talking about here, but I don't believe in necessarily having gatekeepers for everything either. Like I'm very much like a person that's quite autonomous, and I seek to learn and know stuff for myself as well. But I take responsibility for that. Like if I learn some information, then I need to learn the other side of it and how it's used and applied correctly. But I don't know. Again, like I said, we went deep and dark there, buddy.
I like deep and dark. It's fun.
Yeah. Let's keep going with deep and dark then. Tough stuff. Like what's something where you've maybe you've nearly killed yourself or something like that. It's like something hectic out in the ocean where you've come away from it, but definitely with lessons learned.
So and this was actually when I first moved to Key West. And before I moved here, I was free diving and spearfishing, but I wouldn't consider myself experienced as to where I am today. And kind of stepping back on what you just said, I think there's different types of learners. I'm the type of guy that I like to learn from my mistakes. I don't want anyone to show it to me. I want to do it myself because I learn best when I do it wrong. And I will never, ever do it that way ever again. And an example of that is line management. And that's something I preach with all of my beginners. Line management can literally take your life if you're not safe about it. I've actually saved people's lives that have been wrapped up in real line with cobias and bull sharks trying to grab the cobia. And if that shark grabs that fish, they're down. I can't stop that. So I personally was hunting with a float line. I had a gun that didn't have a reel on it, and I was in about 70 feet of water. And this was probably the first year I lived in Key West. So I was still very green. I went down about 65 feet. I shot a mutton, let the fish dangle. This was back before I had a pretty strong opinion on letting fish dangle and flop. Let the fish dangle and flop and just kind of slowly brought the float line up. Well, I was to about 30 to 25 feet, and I had stopped, and I was just letting myself float because I was positively buoyant, and I was pulling the float line up, and the fish was about 10 feet away from me, and the float line had created kind of like a reverse loop.
Yep.
And when I reached to grab the line, my hand went through the loop, and right when I grabbed it, a bull shark came and grabbed that mutton and pulled, and what that float line do? Cinched right down on my wrist, and I went straight back down to the bottom. Luckily, I had enough air left in me, and I was able to get back up. It almost removed my shoulder from from the socket, but that was an eye-opening moment. That was one of the toughest situations I've ever had, and I genuinely could have died. And it was absolutely terrifying, and that was one of those things that really woke me up. And I was like, okay, well, line management is a thing, and I'm never ever doing that ever again.
Okay, so give us some basics on line management. For various levels of hunters. What do you see some common things that people are doing wrong, and maybe how can we create some rules of thumb, if you like?
The biggest mistake that I see personally is Wahoo spearfishing, because you're using float lines. And then when we're out in the Gulf, we're shooting cobia and stuff, but it's normally with reels. So your average beginner diver is going to get to the surface, and they're going to pull that float line or reel line, and they're going to pretty much pull it to their chest and just keep pulling. And all they're doing is creating this big giant bird nest around their body. It's around their arms. You're literally asking for a disaster. So the rule of thumb that I tell everyone is while you're fighting a fish or pulling a line, whether the fish is actually running or you're bringing it in, you are always moving. You're moving forward. Every inch of line you pull goes behind you. Every 5 seconds, look back, make sure it's not around your fins, around your ankle.
Or your dive buddy.
Or your dive buddy, exactly. You have to be clear of that line at all times. So I've had more close calls with people getting wrapped up in line than probably any other scenario out there.
Yeah, great point. And with the Wahoo, they're surface running. Often you'll have one of those flexi sort of bungee style ropes on. What are you sort of seeing in that particular scenario?
The Wahoo are a lot more give and take. And I think it's nicer because I like a float line because I don't even have to worry about the gun. The gun is I normally throw the gun in the boat, and you're doing just the line and pulling with one hand, and I'm throwing the float line behind me with the other. And you just, as that fish takes, you let him take. As it gives, you take from him. So
nice. Love it, man. So you had a big day today. Tell us about what you were doing today. Did you have a charter out today?
Yeah, I had a charter. It was actually two relatively green Spearos, and it was a father and a son. The dad was a 25 foot diver. The son was a 35 foot diver. And when they got on the boat, I was a little nervous because they made it sound like they were going to have a tough time. And whether it was they did something right, in the universe, or I don't know what was going on. There was fish everywhere. Pretty much every drift we had, we got a red grouper limit. We had a black grouper limit. There were mutton snappers everywhere. It got to a point where they were pretty much like, we've got enough fish. We should just probably snorkel. Like, this is incredible. And it was one of those days where I told him, I said, listen, you probably should never book with me ever again, because it's not going to be like this.
Like, I think managing expectations must be a big part of the job. Any charter boat would be the same. Like, you can't control what's going on. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And I if you ask anyone that's been watching me for long enough, I'm probably almost a little annoying about it. I will post all of my bad days just along with my good days. And the truth is, at the end of the day, the charter captains, we're just like the clients. Like, we enjoy fishing. We want to be out there. I get zero pleasure when we don't spearfish. Like, we want to fill the boat with fish. We want you to have a good time. So the reality of sharing those moments, like, hey, some days it's just, no matter what I do, I can't produce. And as much as it sucks, I like people to know that, like, sometimes there's nothing you can do. It's still fishing at the end of the day.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Friends, check out oldmanblue.com.au. It's quality made dive gear right there in the Western Australia by a really cool team. The Old Man Blue team are a very experienced bunch of frothing Spearos that live the life and have done so for a number of years. Check it out at oldmanblue.com.au. Shrek, my dude, you're killing it on the Noob Spearo podcast. Every guest you get on froths on the spearing life, and the actionable info is off the chain. Over here at Spearing Magazine HQ, it's the same, buddy. So many noobers are submitting their adventures, lessons learned, and pictures here at spearingmagazine.com. Just wanted to say that noobers can get an international subscription here at spearingmagazine.com. They can also check out our In the Face apparel, or getting a subscription to the world's greatest spearing magazine. Check it out at spearingmagazine.com. Shrek, thanks. Love what you're doing. Jeremy out. Equalizing problems can be something that derail you. Not today, my friend. Go to freedivingfamily.com. Check out either the Frenzel and Advanced Frenzel video or the Mouthful and Deep Frenzel Equalization course at freedivingfamily.com. You can use the code Spearo to get 20% off any course at freedivingfamily.com. These courses are put together by Adam Stern and a select team of legends, and to help you overcome different issues and help you perform better. And some of them are extremely relevant for freedive spearing. Check it out at freedivingfamily.com. Use the code Spearo to get 20% off any course. All right, we've got two sort of sections of the show left, and then I'm going to let you head to bed and probably editing a bunch more videos tomorrow, or running a charter, or going commercial diving, or whatever it is you're doing tomorrow. You're a busy man. Your dive bag. What's in your dive bag from head to toe, average day diving out there? And I actually want to hear about that little boat that I see you and Madeline scooting around the mangroves in, because that's a cool little whip.
Yeah. So I'll start with mask. I actually wear a scuba diving mask, and this is probably an unpopular opinion to a lot of people. Some of us have big giant heads and big foreheads, and every free diving mask is extremely uncomfortable and drives me crazy. So I wear a Scuba Pro Solo. It is the greatest mask for me on the planet. Doesn't mean it's right for everybody. I just use a SoFlo Spearfishing, the white rubber snorkel. I like a high vis snorkel.
Okay. Just so your buddy can see you from the surface, or?
Yeah, I like down here. It's getting more and more busy, and all the people from Miami come down, and they don't know what the heck they're doing. They almost run you over every day.
Boat traffic is a big one as well. Yep.
Yeah, it's a nightmare down here, especially on the weekends. You get all the people from Miami; they bring their boats down. Anyways, suits. I've got so many different types of suits. I have a lot of Neptonic suits that I like. I got a couple of custom polo sub suits. I'm an odd shaped guy. Apparently, if you're 6'1", you're supposed to be like 190 pounds. So nothing fits me properly. I weigh the same weight I did in high school, and it probably has something to do with diving 6 days a week. But
yeah, I was going to say that you're a skinny unit.
Yeah, I'm 152 pounds soaking wet.
Far out. Well, I'll give you 100 of my pounds, bro, and then I'll be down to 200.
So weight belt, I have an Alchemy, just your silicone stretchy weight belt. I really like the stretchy ones. I don't like the ones that are that fabric material or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. Canvas or whatever. They just slide up and down your hips. Annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a nightmare.
Yeah.
I got a red tide dive knife, double serrated. Love a double serrated edge. There's not a lot of scenarios in my day to day that I need a straight edge, so the double serrated is clutch for me.
Yeah, right.
I always have a flashlight. Neptonics makes a flashlight as well. They're a great group of guys. I know Jerry was on here.
Neptonics sponsor the podcast as well. And
Jerry, I pay someone at Neptonics salary. There's so much stuff I buy. They just make they make some great stuff over there.
Yeah.
So I always have a dive light because a lot of our reef here is ledgy. There's holes, especially the grouper hunting. I never don't have a flashlight on me.
Okay.
And then what are those socks? Anyway, Argos 1 mil socks. I think those are the greatest dive socks ever made.
Why?
They're low cut. They're thin. They hold together well. And then my Alchemy S fins. Love those. The carbons, the lightest, most comfortable fins I've ever put on in my life. I'm not a big sponsor guy. It's just I don't know. Not to sound like a rebel. I just don't like being told what to do.
I find Spearos, even when they're sponsored, have a fair bit of integrity about what gear they like from their sponsor and what they don't. And I think they also have that awkward conversation with their sponsors when they don't really like some of the gear that they've been given. So,
well, anyone who's ever approached me, I say, well, you have to send me whatever it is first. If I don't like it, I'm sending it back. I'm going to tell you. So that's the main reason. And Alchemy has a really cool group of guys over there, and they understand. I'm going to dive. I'm going to put the gear to the test. If it works, it'll show. If it doesn't work, it's going to show. So we get along really well. Are
they Spanish or French or?
Greece.
Oh, it's Greek. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Actually, that makes sense now. Yeah. No, I have seen them around there. Yeah. I haven't had a lot to do with their gear.
I think.
Yeah. No, it sounds right. I
may be mistaken. I'm coming off of 7 days of diving. My brain's kind of fried.
You're always coming off.
It's somewhere over there. I know it's not here.
I feel terrible for you coming off 7 days diving. I've come off 7 days of COVID, so.
Oh man.
No, it's all good.
Good Lord.
No, it's all good. Spear guns. I noticed you're running a timber rear handle, and you seem to keep it pretty simple. It's a conventional spear gun.
Yeah, just straightforward 52 inch. We call them rear handle plus. I built a lot of my own guns years ago, and I kind of had this gun I threw banana stickers on, and it kind of became a thing of legend, and everybody wanted one. So a good friend of mine, John, with Koa spear guns, we started kind of reproducing them, and there's not anything proprietary about it. I'm not going to sit here and say it's this magical spear gun. It's just the specs that I like. It is the perfect reef spear gun for me down here.
Nice.
So we started making a few of them, but that's pretty much my go-to. It's 50 inches, a rear handle plus, and I single wrap everything, except for my blue water guns. I'm real big on that. I think I mentioned it, but
I do too.
Ever since I started doing it years and years ago, it really encourages you to be a better hunter and close that gap. And you're not taking those risky shots. So every shot that you place is going to count, and you're going to get that fish. So,
and you lose less fish to ledges. Like you have less drama because you can pull them up in time.
Yeah. So I see, say a fish does square up on you, right? You shoot him. He's got 28 feet of shooting line that you have to pull before it runs into a ledge. So it kind of screws you on that end as well.
100%. Yeah, it's annoying. And then you're forever changing the shooting line. I don't know if you're still shooting mono, but man, it's annoying changing it out all the time. Like because it's scratched up and wrapped.
I shoot Dyneema, but it does pretty well. But yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah, awesome, buddy. Awesome. So and that little whip, that boat you're getting around in, what is that thing? I love it.
Oh yeah, it's called a Gheenoe, Gheenoe. Everyone mispronounces and butchers the name when you read it, but it's called a Gheenoe. They make them here in Central Florida. It's essentially, if you haven't seen it, it's a canoe with the back chopped off, and they put a motor on it. And it is one of the baddest little boats on the planet for running around the backcountry. It's an absolute blast. I put a 50 on mine, which it's not actually rated for that, but it does like 40 miles an hour. It's like being on a spaceship. It's pretty awesome.
I watched you on that slicker, and I was like, damn, he's moving. Like that thing punches. Cause there's no beam in it. It's just like,
no,
just a scoop craft. Like it would just.
It's almost a little terrifying at times, but man, it is fun, and you can get that thing anywhere. I can run in 8 inches of water. It's a blast.
What about in terms of handling swell or even fetch? Does it chop through all right?
Yeah, it's a really light chop it can handle. You just kind of skip over the tops, but after you get any period between it, it's not great for it. It's meant to flats fish and be in a river. It's mainly for rivers and streams and stuff, but I brought it to Key West.
Are they sponsoring you yet?
No.
Man, you must be selling some of their boats though, with the amount of people watching your channel. 100%.
I hope so.
Have you talked to the people there? Have you reached out to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I know them very well.
Cool.
I won't get too in depth, but it's a long story.
Oh, good. Well, I don't want to start anything, so I already talk about enough controversial shit. All right, faster round of questions. It's Spearo Q&A, and then we'll head on out with where people can connect with you and find you and join you. So Spearo Q&A. Could you describe? We'll start off deep and philosophical, Aaron. Could you describe what the spearfishing experience means to you in one sentence?
Oh, it brings out my primitive roots.
Ooh, okay. Nice. You did it in one sentence. I like that. What is the single best piece of advice you've ever been given for spearing?
This will go back to when I first started. Dive with divers that are more experienced than you.
Okay, cool. Who has been the most influential person or people in your spearfishing?
I wish I had an answer for that, but
so your dad chucked you in the water?
I would say it's my dad, because he is one that really showed me the love for the ocean. The free diving thing wasn't really his thing, but he definitely influenced it, because he's the one that showed me the ocean and really sparked my love for it. So without that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now.
What is the spearfishing destination you would most like to go to?
I would really like to do the halibut thing in, what is it, Norway?
Yeah. That's
an extreme one for me, because I'm a chicken shit when it comes to cold. I'm in Key West in wintertime. I'm wearing a 5 mil, but I would like to face it one time and do it. I think that would be incredible.
Have you connected with Daniel Mann?
No, I've watched a couple of his videos. I'm familiar with him, but I haven't chatted with him. He's an excellent storyteller, and some of the stuff he puts out is incredible. And I've seen the couple of his northern trips, which that's kind of what got the ball rolling on that, and it's unbelievable.
I was going to say to you though, he's a wuss with the cold as well. A wuss
is he really?
Yeah, like a wimp. So he's got a video there about how he stays warm. You might like to watch that one as well. But if you ever do those trips,
I'm going to have to check that out.
But I saw John Dornalis. He went and did that trip fairly recently. I saw that in Spearing magazine actually, and they wrote about that trip as well. It seems to be on a lot of Spearo's bucket lists these days.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I definitely like to check that one off.
Cool. Man, I've had a blast chatting, Aaron. I could do this all day, every day. You're a cool dude, and I really love your channel, man. I will be watching and subscribing and liking videos forever. So that's Key West Waterman. Your Dibs on Bottom Adventure on Instagram, and your website's dibsonbottom.com as well, is it? Or?
.com, yeah. There's a bunch of them. You just type in Dibs on Bottom on the internet. There's not a lot of competitors with similar names, so I'll pop up.
There's guys up in just north of the border, British Columbia. They've got bottom dwellers, and then someone in northern US has the same name, Bottom Dwellers, and I was just like, how weird is that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is pretty funny.
Yeah, and I think they're a scuba diving group or something he was telling me, but they're running a cool thing up there, BC. Anyway, buddy, mate, thanks for joining me. I know you've had a long day on your charter and 7 days of spearing, you poor bugger. I'll just keep sitting in my office and thinking about spearing and talking about it.
I'll thank you while I'm out there tomorrow.
All good. Thanks, brother. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed Key West Waterman, Captain Aaron Young, aka Dibs on Bottom Adventures. If you are loving the show, I'd love it if you become a patron listener. Go over to patreon.com/Noob Spearo, sign up, and you can choose one of 3 levels to support the podcast at. Every little bit keeps fuel in the outboard, my friends. And hey, you just sharing the show with your mates, listening along, commenting, getting involved, joining the Noob Spearo community on Facebook, all of these things help keep this show on the road. And a massive thanks to today's major sponsors, Neptonics and Adreno. Could not do it without those guys. Hey, next week we're off top 20 spearfishing YouTube channels. I know we've just had Key West Waterman, Captain Aaron Young. He made the list as well. But find out what other 19 made the top 20 spearfishing YouTube channels as voted by the Noob Spearo community on Facebook. More than 4,000 frothers voted up these channels. I had, I think there's more than 50 or 60 channels we chat about. Get into it. James Sacker joins me to talk top 20. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch up. Today's episode was an absolute banger, and so is our major sponsor, Adreno. Visit them at adreno.com.au. They have a huge range of equipment. You can find it at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo at checkout. When you shop online, you can save $20 on every purchase over $200. You can even use that code in-store at some of their huge mega stores Australia-wide. Price beat guarantee on any Australian spearfishing equipment price. Again, visit them at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo. The Noob Spearo podcast is incredibly proud to be partnering with Neptonics.com. It's solid gear that works, equipment you can rely on. It's the very best in spearing gear from around the planet. Neptonics is also the one-stop shop for all your spearfishing gear, particularly in the US. They've got free shipping on all orders over $99 in the US. Furthermore, you can use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off on your entire shopping basket at Neptonics.com. Use the code NoobSpearo at Neptonics.com.